Ollie, I cannot pet you or give you a treat when you're jumping up on me. This is Ollie, and in this video, I'm going to go over how you can use counter conditioning and desensitization to stop a dog from reacting to things. I have a garage door opener here. Ollie likes to bark when the garage door is open and closed. He also barks and charges the door. He uses the doorbell or a knock at the door. These are examples of what we call classical conditioning. So a stimulus happens or something happens, and it's followed by something the dog really likes or gets excited about. And so the garage door he hears open, then people come through that door. There's a knock, and then an excitement, people come through the door. So what we want to do for counter conditioning is we want to desensitize the dog to the stimulus and actually create a counter behavior. So I've got the remote control to the garage door so I can do this. Now I do counter conditioning a little bit different than other people. And every time I post one of these online, people tell me like, you're doing it wrong. I do it this way intentionally. So right now if I do this, he's going to bark and run over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a treat, and this is kind of the inversion of what you'll eventually do. So I'm going to give him a treat. Then I activate the stimulus. So if you're doing a knock, I would maybe, this is a little bit longer, this is a little bit harder to do because the garage door takes about 5 or 10 seconds to open up. So basically what I would do is if I do it for knocking, I would give him a treat and knock once. So the treat is in his mouth first, and then he hears the stimulus. And now my three things that I do, if the dog barks and reacts, it's what we call above threshold. It's basically a dog version of hysteria, and you're not going to hear it or learn anything. So if I knock here and he barks and freaks out, I might have somebody knock on the kitchen table over there. And instead of knocking really hard, I might have them knock lightly. What I do is I lower the intensity by turning down the volume, slowing down the speed, or increasing the distance, or sometimes a combination thereof. So if the knock gets him when he's right here, you have somebody further and further away, or knocking lighter and lighter. So the first thing you do is you give the dog the treat. Oops, that was my fault. So this is why I do it the way I do it. This is actually a good fail. So I meant to give him this treat, but I hit the button at the same time, and so he got worked up and he wasn't interested in the treat. This is why I do it this way. So what I do is I give him the treat first, and see how he's pacing, his ears are back, he's breathing heavy. He's kind of he's not over threshold, but he's pretty stimulated. So I'm gonna wait for him to relax a little bit. And if a dog won't sit or won't take a treat, that's a pretty good indication they're getting close to their breaking point. So once they hit the breaking point, they're not going to hear anything. There we go. Ears are went back up. There we go. Ollie. Ollie. There you go, buddy. Now, I'm using the leash in this regard because if a dog runs around, it's what we call aroused. And they're just like two people arguing. The more you argue, the more worked up you get. The more they move around, the more animated they get, the more intense they are, the harder it is for them to settle down. Teaching a dog to settle down is actually really important and something you need to practice. So I'm just kneeling on the leash for this. So the first thing you want to do is maybe 5 or 10 times where, once it gets done, Ollie. Now, if he's like this, is animated, we wait until he settles. Doesn't make the best footage, but it's really, really important to do. Ollie. Not interested, so he's still close to that threshold point, so we're just going to wait. This is patience is a virtue, is an axiom, but it really matters when it comes to dogs. So you can give it to him or you can drop it down. This is not the best camera footage when you're behind the camera. Ollie. So I'm gonna describe a little bit. So we'll wait for him to settle down. Sitting is usually a good indication. But one thing I pointed out to the guardian, he's, I think, in guard dog mode. I think that's part of the reason why he has all this. This is basically the stress hormone, cortisol, in his blood, which basically stops all non-essential body functions, which is why a dog won't take a treat when there's cortisol in his blood. Notice where he's pointed. The garage door is the door to the garage is over there. The door of the house is there. The door of the backyard is there. And the whole time that I've been here, he has been orientated with his nose towards one of those 3 directions because that's where people come from. That's where the threat can come from. And I think he thinks he's on duty and he has to protect people from the threat. All right, now he's breathing a little bit heavy. This is also going to be an indication of stress. Dilated pupils. The guardians notice his ears flip back. There's different things that it manifests. But once you see it happening, we want to wait until the dog's relaxed. And I don't want to pull him on the leash because that's just going to activate his opposition reflex. Ollie! Ollie! Sometimes changing your octaves can help. All right, and so if he wants to go this way, that way, I will move around if I can, buddy. You're making this a challenge. He's like, yep, I'm gonna make you earn your money. All right. So, all right, so since he's not, and you have to wait for the dog to relax. So it doesn't make good video, but this is a good teachable moment. So you might have to wait 5 minutes before he relaxes. See how his head is down, he's pointing this direction. Even though he's sitting, you can tell he's kind of agitated. And again, just offering that treat. I know he likes these treats because he's taken about 100 of them already. So basically what you're gonna do is wait for the dog to relax. When he's relaxed, then you give him another one of these treats and activate the stimulus. And if you can't settle down here, move over on the other side of this wall, move further away. The idea is keep on moving far enough away where he can settle down faster. And as you practice this, he'll get better and faster at it. Once you get to the point where you can trigger the response and he doesn't respond anymore because it's associated with something good happening, then I reverse it. Then I would activate the garage and give him a treat after. Now again, if he's above, like what I was talking about, he's not going to take the treat. That's why we have to wait for him to settle down. So now what we're doing is we're saying the stimulus, in this case the sound and the vibrations, the garage door opening, means I'm about to get a treat. But we can't do this until he no longer perceives that to be a threat. A lot of the things that are going to address this are going to be things we talked about off camera, enforcing rules, petting with a purpose, passive training the guardian's already doing. But we need to start, and the guardian probably is doing some things when he's nervous, like petting him. Well, that'll make him more nervous or more excited or more aggressive, or whatever a dog is doing when you pet him is what you're amplifying. So remember, he is stressed. You can lay your hand on him, let him know I'm here with you, and it doesn't amplify it. But as soon as you start petting it, well, sit and never push his butt down. He did that on his own. So after a while, you'll be able, maybe you're across the house and you're able to click, the garage door goes down, and then you get him a treat. Right now I'm doing it while the garage door is in the middle of going down. Eventually I'd like the garage door to go down all completely, then I would give him the treat. And then I gradually start working closer and closer to the house, and he's just trying to he wants to go run over there and protect things. So, because that's his neural pathways are locked in. He's been doing that for a long time. That's what he's used to doing. So let's say we're way on the other side of the house. We're doing this and we can activate it, and he's calm, and I give him a treat when it gets done. Once you have that a couple times in a row, then you take one step closer and repeat the process. By repeat the process, I mean you activate the garage door. When it goes down completely, you give him the treat, and you can even come up with a word that means the garage door opening or down. Don't really have to, because it's not a commandable deal. So yeah, actually scratch that. Don't worry about that. So the idea is eventually now the garage door opening means I get a treat, and we get closer and closer and closer to it. And the key thing when we're doing this, nobody's coming in through that door. Nobody's coming in that door when we're ringing the doorbell or knocking. Nobody, he's backyard. We don't have a lot of people coming in from fresh out there. But the idea is if he hears the knock on the door, and then he goes to the door, and then people come in, that people coming in is like the validator. It's like the treat. So we want to replace that validation with this validation. Now you can see he's pacing around, he's anxious, and these are all indications of the dog that is stressed out. So it's not going to be something that happens overnight. You're going to have to work on it. But if you make a list of all of the things, the sounds that he is reactive to, and help him practice this, you can get over it. Now, you can help him get over it. Across the street, there's a house that's going to be built. There's going to be a lot of he's telling me. There's going to be a lot of construction there, a lot of sounds outside. He won't be able to see them, but he'll hear them. So what you'd like to do is maybe go out there, if there's something to do, and go out there with your phone without him, and just do the voice memos on your phone and record like 60 seconds of hammering. Then come back inside, play it. The fidelity will be a little bit different. So you have maybe your husband playing it, and at first what I do is I usually smash a treat and let him nibble on the treat while we're playing it at a very low volume, maybe volume 1, he can barely hear it. And he's getting used to eating these treats. And you're just basically smashing the treat and feeding him so he gets in about 3 or 4 bites each treat, and you're playing the whole 60 seconds. Next time you play it at volume 2, do repeat the process. Then volume 3. When he gets to the point where he's almost not taking the treat or won't sit down, he's getting close to his breaking point. So we take a note of what volume level we're at, we stop, and then we come back the next time we practice, and we start a little bit lower than that threshold and practice, and we gradually build our way up till it sounds like people are hammering in this house. And he is associating with getting a treat. And you can also do this flip side of the counter conditioning. That's really desensitization that I just described. You can also add the counter conditioning, hammer, treat, hammer, treat. But I think really just desensitizing him will be sufficient for what we're doing. So make a list of all the sounds that he's fearful of that you can recreate, so we can help him individually get over each and every one of these. And after a while, the sound of the buzzsaw or the hammering or whatever is nothing to worry about, because I've had it be exposed to, I've been exposed to it at a very low level. And as I remained calm, I'm practicing being calm as the intensity level goes up until it's real world side. And I just practiced not freaking out, and then it doesn't bother me anymore. Well, hiding behind me over here is Ollie. Are you gonna take a treat now? Nope. That's called avoidance. A little bonus for this. If there we go. So that's it. So now we know that he'd be ready to practice this again. I'm not going to do it again because it'll take too long. I'm going to show you one other thing. So, Ollie, sit. So a lot of us, when we pet dogs, we think of the petting is the best thing. Well, if the dog's like, I'm not sure if I want you to pet me or not, and we pet him, it's going to make him, now I'm sure I don't like you. So what I like to do, Ollie, he's practicing what's called avoidance. See how he's not looking at me? He's saying, I don't want to engage with you. I don't want what you have going on. I want to go back to my mommy. So I'll use his butt and imagine this is his head. So if I'm going to pet him and I don't know him, I reach this far and I stop. I stop about 90% of the way. If the dog backs up or turns his head to the side, that's the dog's way of saying, I would prefer you don't touch me. What do we do anyways? Well, what I'm doing is a good thing, so it's okay to pet him. It's not. If I go to hold my girlfriend's hand and she pulls her hand back and says no, and I grab it anyways, I'm not being respectful of her. And so same thing for the dog. You're gonna take the remote with you, huh? So when you have people come over, I would say, and can I pet him? Because I mean, he's a Corgi. Everybody wants to pet him. Say yes, but we want him to know that if he doesn't want to pet somebody, all he has to do is turn his head, and that person will stop petting. If you can operate under that, I'd love to have you try to pet him. The more that people reach for him, and he turns his head and they don't pet him, the more he's like, people are listening to me. Now, after a while, what happens, you hold your hand out there and he'll lean forward and touch it, and then you could pet him. He's saying yes. So that is not going to be related with the cortisol. I mean, there's a relation, because if people aren't listening to me, that makes me apprehensive and anxious as well. So the more that we can get him to feel like humans are listening to me and I'm empowered for my own body, all I have to do is turn my head and they stop petting me. A lot of dogs learn to nip or bite or growl or bare teeth because they don't like to be petted. And since if he's really nervous, he's probably going to prefer not to be petted in that scenario. And a lot of the places you take him are places he's going to have that cortisol in his blood and be anxious. So the more that he's in that environment and feels empowered, the more confident he'll be and the less anxious he'll be. Ollie, want a treat? How about you want to go to your mom? Like, yes. How about we just don't hide behind the camera for a second? Well, this is Ollie, and this is, and this is Ollie practicing a little avoidance. And these are tips and tricks you can use if you have a dog that's reactive to certain sounds.